Hi, and welcome to the Up Zone. It is 2025, Mr. Floyd, and we still exist to help make everybody in our audience be able to understand politics in a simpler fashion. So, again, welcome to Up Zone, where understanding politics is made simple. We are still your two hosts, Mr. Elmer Floyd, former House Representative. I am just jacking this all up this morning. Former House Representative for the state of North Carolina, District 43, and myself, Tisha S. Wardell, former City Council member for the City of Fayetteville, the 3rd District. Mr. Floyd,
Yes, Tish.
how's 2025 treating you so far?
Well, Tish, I tell you, I was really appreciative of yesterday. I don't think my creditor had access to to emails or landline to notify me, and I just hope
Listen,
that I hope that they show me the same love on Valentine's Day.
what you want them to do? Leave you alone?
Yeah,
You want people that's not even bothering you anyway to leave you alone?
yeah, on Valentine's Day they show me some love by doing this.
Hilarious.
It's a good year. It's a good year.
Absolutely, absolutely. Mr. Floyd, let me ask you this. Did you do or do you do the whole let's make resolutions for New Year's?
Well, Tisha, I really don't make them. I just continue to live the same lifestyle that I did the year prior to. I don't try to make resolutions and those type things because they said by Friday or the following week you've already
You
broke
didn't
them.
fell off. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
gonna take time.
Yeah. And I'm just a huge proponent of if you're going to make a change, make the change. Don't talk about the change. Just make the change. And then let other people talk about the change when they begin to see it.
I mean, so I just go on with life as as usual. I think that and how you lived in 24 will will also help determine how you live in 25.
Absolutely.
So if you eat all the pork chop that you see in 24, you're gonna eat all the pork chop that you see in 25, and you already have high blood pressure. You know, you
And
see,
and taking those pills doesn't change anything. You got to stop eating the pork chops.
you gotta stop eating them. So I don't make them. I just look at how will our community move forward and survive, without placing a lot of undue hardship on our community through fees. Now, we don't want to use taxes anymore because now they change them to fees in order to carry out their responsibility. And that's the concern that really bothers me as we look at 24 into 2025. And how was 2024 as it relates to 2025, and see will our government entities making the changes towards 24 into 25 to improve the quality of life for
Their
our,
constituents.
yeah.
Absolutely. Miss Floyd, let me ask you this. What are our announcements?
Well, the Martin Luther King Committee is still, it's going to have the parade, and that's going to be
Can
on
we make a distinction between the Martin Luther King Committee and the committee that's working on the Martin Luther King Park? Because I think that as
they're
we
the
have that
same.
dialogue, say again.
They're the same.
So
They're
there's no
one and the same.
distinction.
They're one. They're both. They just have various programs, and one of their programs that they do is for fundraiser, and that is the parade. And they have a second fundraiser is that they have a luncheon or a dinner or something there. So those are their two main functions
So
that.
how are those two things? I know we're in announcements, but I just want to ask this question. How are those two things going off without a hitch, but they can't bring together the dialogue behind this park?
Well, that's a good conversation there, Tish. I think that when you look at the board and when you look at the board and way the board was set up, it's not that the board of directors is elected from the general, for lack of word, from the general community.
Okay.
It is indicated that the board of directors appoint members to the board of directors.
Okay.
So you already have a majority of the members on the board of directors. Simply, they just gonna bring on more of the like and the same.
Got it.
So that's one of the reasons there. And again, it's those two programs really doesn't generate enough money, to really carry on the role and the responsibility. So as you know, they receive money from the state, the county, and the city for the development of the Martin Luther King Park as well. So many in the community now uh, is waiting to see the progress that is being made.
Okay.
This is going on to 2 to 3 years,
Okay.
So
No,
we're,
it's been going on longer than that because I was in office. We were having that conversation and I came in 17. So it's been going on a little longer than that.
we are hoping that something will will take place, this year. One of the things that they mentioned, I know it's not part of the announcement, was that there was some concern with PwC, so they had to move the
Yes.
site, which required another architect design
Hmm.
in order to move that site. But many in the community feel, like King said, how long? Yeah.
Well, listen, moving right along. What other announcements do we have?
Okay. And the prayer breakfast is going to be that Monday, which is the 20th.
Okay.
And that's going to be at 10 o'clock at the Crown Coliseum. So tickets are going to be, $35.
Where can people get their tickets, Mr. Floyd?
Well, they can get them at WIDU. They can get them because Reverend Stackhouse is going to be the keynote.
Okay.
So they can get them at Lewis Chapel, and also I think it's Dr. Hodge, and also at the Crown that they
Okay.
can get the tickets there. I'm going to see if I can stop by We Do because they have a limited amount of tickets to keep me from running all over Fayetteville.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of We Do, how's your podcast coming along?
Well, we're supposed to do one tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock.
So people need to tune in. WIDU. What time?
It's supposed to be at 8 o'clock
Okay.
tonight. So we're talking about, I think tomorrow they want to talk about Jimmy, the past president, which is Jimmy Carter, and also about the issue about the swearing in of Josh Steins and other community activities.
Who, by the way, is now our acting governor. He has been sworn in. Okay.
You
Any
sworn in?
other announcements?
Yes, and the Vets Unlimited is going to have their Valentine program festivity, and that's going to be at the Shriners Club on Cannon Road, and that's going to be on February the 8th. And
Okay.
that's start around 9 o'clock. So if you want to have a outing and bring your sweetheart, the Vets Unlimited, it's a good program. There, I think the tickets on sale for $50.
Okay. And that's
And
what that tickets cover a couple, or is that per person?
per person $50.
Okay.
Because what they do each year, they give out X number of scholarships, and that's related to the triple nickel. So it's a and it's a funny thing, Chief. I go to many events,
I
throughout
know you do. You're still very, very, very visible in our community.
but the comes in that each event has a different relationship and different people.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just
Different communities
amazing.
support different organizations.
Yeah, it's just
Absolutely.
amazing when I go to the Vets Unlimited activities. Totally different set of people than when I go to the prayer brunch. Totally different people, but they are good people and they come out to support their cause, which is good.
Absolutely. 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 What other announcements you got, Mr. Floyd? Because you are word on the curb, ear to the street.
No, I mean, if you like basketball, the Harlem Globetrotter will be here April the 2nd at the Coliseum. So if
Okay.
you like basketball, I mean, I love it, but I think I can dribble the ball about 10 feet.
I'm not gonna bore you with my basketball story, but I have one, but I'll tell you another day.
All right, but that's the events that we have. I'm sure that there's going to be more throughout the year. So
Cool.
so look at the parade, look at the prayer breakfast, look at Vets Unlimited, and also if you like basketball, carry your kids to see the Harlem Globetrotters.
Absolutely. Now, with any good year, there are always interesting stories that you want to recap. So, we're going to spend today actually going back and doing a recap of some of the things we talked about in 2024. As we go through this conversation, Mr. Floyd, I want us to kind of make sure that we're taking our time to first of all remind people what the genesis of the conversation is, but then let them know where we see this shaping up in 2025, because it's going the things that we're talking about today are things that essentially are still unresolved.
Well, Tish, as they say in church, well,
So the first thing on our list is the article that we talked about where the Fayetteville residents blamed the concrete plan for plant for pollution. So I'm going to pop that article up, and then just as a recap before we even get started, I want to remind everybody that when it comes to this particular article, we've been referring to this as the Dust Bowl, right?
yes.
So, with the Dust Bowl, we have continued to explain to our audience the significance and the effect that there's a term that you were using, Mr. Floyd, and that term was
Environmental
um,
racism.
say it again.
Environmental racism.
That's the term, environmental racism. So essentially, we continue to talk about how there needs to be an environmental justice. And if we were to define environmental justice, Mr. Floyd, I think that we would likely give the definition of ensuring that all communities have equal protection from environmental hazards, right? And so in this situation, we saw residents in Fayetteville's predominantly Black and low income Fairfield neighborhood allege that Fay Block, a local concrete plant, is causing significant dust pollution, leading to health issues. So, Mr. Floyd, let's talk about that. What did we see happening in this conversation?
Well, what we saw in that was that the Department of Environmental and Quality Control, looked at Fay Block Company and as an unannounced visit, and
Right.
some concerns about their uh, problem to control dust.
Let
And
me ask you a
cited,
question really quickly because we've talked a lot about NCDEQ,
mhm,
but we never really told our audience who that is. So that's a state agency, right?
that's the agency that looks at the environment throughout the state. As you notice, that's the same agency that's looking at the water quality in Grace Creek area. You
And
know,
they're appointed, right? They are an appointed board. Who
they are
appoints
the
them?
staff. That's a staff.
So,
Staff.
and staff is selected by who at the state level?
Well, the staff, as you know, Josh Stein has, well, let's say, recommended individuals to carry out. I think it's 13 agency that he has to make appointments over.
So the
But
head of that organization is appointed. The head of NCDEQ is appointed by the governor.
as appointed by the governor with the approval of the General Assembly.
Okay,
So the General Assembly will approve the 13, what I'm gonna say, cabinet level position,
got it.
which Stein recommended. And
Got it.
DEQ is one of those agency, and that agency, when the Republican look at that, it will look at that agency and how many regulations that it want to impose on business as they operate within the state. So that position may be more scrutinized than the other positions.
Okay. So now with this in mind, you were saying that they came in, they took a look at what was going on, and then this ended up coming before the Fayetteville City Council.
Well,
We went to the zoning commission.
yeah, the Fayetteville City Council, uh, you know, there were I think it was 3 lots that was out of compliance. If we talked about
Right,
that,
right.
and those lots would have to be rezoned. And as of today, I'm not sure about whether or not those 3 lots was rezoned. But as I
It,
mentioned to you, that if I want to rezone those lots, I have a one person that I will get to rezone
absolutely. And
the
the zoning commission is appointed. They're also an appointed board. They're appointed by the Fayetteville City Council. So we've got two boards that are appointed, one appointed, two agencies that operate by appointment. So the NCDEQ appointed by the governor, who at this point
the director.
who has very close ties with the city of Fayetteville, to include that attorney Jonathan Charleston, because that attorney has held fundraisers for Josh Stein here in the community. And then we also have
He only had us. Come on, Teach. Now, I don't mean to be disrespectful. He only had several fundraisers.
only several. So that's no big, that's nothing worth talking about. Nothing worth talking about. And then the second board is the zoning commission, who is also appointed by the Fayetteville City Council. And the Fayetteville City Council also has ties to the attorney Jonathan Charleston. So we see how all of this is really interconnected. And again, we're talking about this because our constituency needs to be able to understand the politics and how they work behind all this. So Mr. Floyd, with those bodies, you've got this interplay between them. So you've got the elected officials who establish the environmental laws and policies, while you've got the appointed bodies who enforce these regulations and monitor compliance, and they're all connected and in cahoots. But then you've got the residents who are the ones being affected by these policies and the enforcement of them. And the only thing that we can tell our constituency, who are these residents, is that they need to petition their elected officials to prompt the appointed agencies to investigate and address the environmental concerns. But as we just pointed out, it's a big old spider web.
Well, that Tish, it's good that we talk about these things to let our citizens know how these things take place. But
Mm-hmm.
as we go into 2025, there will be very little changes. Although we have an election, is there a council election in 25?
Yes, there is.
Is to hold these individuals accountable for their action.
Right.
But the but come about, when they come in our community and smile, we forget about it.
And listen, and when they hire these attorneys who people don't understand are tied to all the different points to be able to leverage influence, we don't know that. And so we don't know why we're not getting momentum in the things that we're discussing before these different bodies.
Well, that's politics. Politics,
Absolutely.
in what our community don't realize. Politics mean access.
No, money means access.
What you
Money means access. Politics means, the politicking of it all. But money means access to the politicians who politic it all.
Well, I mean, you can't run a campaign unless you are somebody with a billionaire or a
And
trade.
even then, you can't put all your own money up, so you still need relationships.
Well, and that's why when you look at key organizations, not only just here in Fayetteville, but across the state, and who the players are, just like the Automobile Dealers Association,
Right.
the Home Dealers Association. All these individuals plays a role into their ability to have access to political persons.
Absolutely.
When we look at, just fast forward and coming back, when we look at the Council of State, Blumenberg gave $3.5 million of his money towards the election of Council of State members in North
And
Carolina.
please don't think that did not buy him access. Now, what those the politicians,
It gave him some communication.
let's go with that. I like that. So, Mr. Floyd, let's talk about another appointed body. As we recap 2024, let's talk about the Ethics Commission, because that is also a body of decision makers that is appointed by the Fayetteville City Council. So when we look back, what we saw was that there was a report that City View Today put together that indicated that over the past 5 years, Fayetteville's Ethics Commission has dismissed all 7 complaints brought before it, and that raised some concerns about its effectiveness and transparency. These allegations include a lack of transparency in deliberation, potential conflicts of interest, and violations of commission bylaws by its own members. These things have not been adequately addressed according to what this article presented. And again, this is an appointed body that is appointed by the Fayetteville City Council to investigate the Fayetteville City Council in these matters. What say
Well,
you, Mr. Floyd?
well, it looks at the council and also city employees, because Chief
Yes.
Harkins.
City employees, so let me correct myself because you're correct. It's a 5-member voluntary advisory committee tasked with investigating complaints and rendering advisory opinions regarding alleged violations of the city's ethics policy by city employees, board and commission members, and city council members.
Well, the thing, although they had no, what I mean by statutory authority,
Mhm.
but the key thing of it is that you just mentioned in their advisory role, they could advise the council, of areas and concerns that they see that may be in
Absolutely.
conflict with the city total operation of the city policy.
Should that
You know,
advisement be released to the public if such an advisement it is
it
is
it should it should be, and then again, the way that board is set up, Tish, is 3 citizens, I believe, one accountant and one attorney.
right?
So you have the 3 citizens that I just mentioned. So after that decision is made, there it seems like to me that the community need to know how the board dismiss
Yes.
that, along with the recommendation. For instance, if they looked at through that process, is that you need to have 2 cars instead of 1 car, then they should, that recommendation is that for that agency or department to carry out his or her mission, need to have 2 police cars. I'm using the word police cars now, or 2 traffic trucks or whatever, you
Hmm.
know, and that would help the council carry out its goals as it relates to that agency and why it was up under review.
And one of the issues that we saw highlighted in City View Today's reporting was that while the Ethics Commission is expected to hold elected officials accountable and create a system of checks and balances, the Ethics Commission itself has been accused of violating their own ethics in that the attorney appointed to the board actually went against policy in making a donation to a member of council's to the mayor's campaign, and has not to date publicly been held accountable for that. And so what happens for the community, the implications to us as a community is it erodes public trust because we perceive ineffectiveness or bias with the commission, and we start having transparency concerns because all of these closed door deliberations and dismissal patterns lead to skepticism about the community's commitment to ethical governance. And we if we're going to rely on a board to be able to determine whether or not there are violations of ethics, first of all, we need to know that that board itself is maintaining their ethics, and secondly, we need to understand how they're coming to, as you said, these dismissals.
Well, Tish, now one thing that all these committees, that once they're set up and begin to operate, there should be a number one, a city attorney available at all meetings. The
Absolutely.
city attorney, I'm using the word city attorney quite naturally, would probably be a staff attorney, that's within the city attorney's office.
In the city attorney's office,
Yeah,
yes.
that would sit with these committees and go over the rules and regulation that's govern these committees. And an example of that will be about the contribution. So if that person, unbeknown to the candidate, had made a contribution, and then that should be expressed to that to that attorney during that session, is that I gave this contribution of X,
Absolutely.
because the city attorney would advise them of these are the rules, these are the regulations, and this is what you can do, and this is what you cannot do. At
Absolutely.
that time, it should have been mentioned, to the staff that I have made this contribution, as small as it was.
Absolutely.
Made.
And in light of the fact that it has been brought to the community's attention, we should be able to infer that it has also been brought to the council's attention. Let me tell you why we should be able to infer that. As a former member of the Fayetteville City Council, I can attest to the fact that every morning, unless something has changed, we received an email every morning with every news article that had something to do with the Fayetteville City Council. If there was any article in any publication, any of the major publications, and City View Today is a major publication in our area, we received an email directing us to read that so that we could be abreast of what was being discussed in the community regarding the work that we were doing. So since we can infer that this should have been brought to the council's attention, this should have been addressed publicly at this point. And this is another instance of why trust and transparency and faith in ethical governance is eroded in our community.
Well, Tish, I can remember one time that that I took a trip, and this was school of choice,
Mm-hmm.
and I, took that trip, and my party indicated that I took that trip in violation. Okay,
Yeah,
did not receive approval, but we did have approval, so it was about $650. So and to deal with the conversation. Now the other party didn't give back their money that they would pay for the trip. So I decided the best thing to do is just write a check for $600+
absolutely.
and
And shut the
return.
conversation down.
And so in this instance, that could be done in a public statement. If it has not been done, is that I return the $100 that was given to me by John Doe,
Absolutely.
and that would add some credit towards the policy.
It would make a deposit in the bank of maybe we might be able to rock with you a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
because right now all they're doing is making debits from this.
so
They've not done anything, Mr. Floyd. This governing body, the Fayetteville City Council, as a body, has not done anything to make a deposit into the Bank of Public Transparency and Trust, because all of the decisions that they've made, to include ones that were made when I was on the board, and in light of my resignation, where they still have refused to investigate the people named in my allegations, demonstrate to us that they don't have a true interest in transparency.
when you look at it, and I know we're on this program together, but when you look at your case and you look at one that communicated with a house that is supposed to be demolished.
DJ Harris ethic complaint. I'm gonna make it plain for the people. They don't have to try to figure it out. Yes, sir.
So when you see this is not being looked at, and when you see communication between the parties is not being
why should we expect anything different? Absolutely. And that says to this governing body, do whatever you want to do.
What difference does it make?
Right.
I mean,
absolutely.
It was alleged that the communication had taken place. And the same doing this communication, when it got to a point where communication, in the relationship just broke down, he said, "You can call my attorney."
Call my attorney. Mr. Floyd, listen, let me tell you when we all needed to call our attorneys. We all needed to call our attorneys when this gerrymandering stuff started happening. So let's go ahead and talk about 2024 as it relates to gerrymandering at the state level, because this was one of those instances. My mother used to say, and I don't know if she used to tell me that her mother used to say, but I can tell you, my mother used to say, you're not going to pee in my face and tell me it's raining. And this is one of those instances where the people of North Carolina, particularly those of us in Cumberland County, especially those in District 42, 43, we all had somebody standing over us, peeing in our face and trying to convince us that it was rain.
But they did a good job, though, Teach.
Did an
I mean,
excellent job because they ended up getting elected. And the person that I'm referring to is former House Representative. Um, why I can't even think of his name right now.
Representative Lucas.
Lucas, Representative Lucas, who told all of us there's nothing to see here. I didn't redistrict so that Mr. Colvin's house could be drawn into the district. But in fact, that the evidence pointed to that being the case. And Mr. Floyd, as such, listen, when we think about this incident, and we look at the implications for our community, let's just tell everybody what gerrymandering is. Gerrymandering is manipulating electoral district boundaries to favor a political party or group. Again, this continues. Listen, this is by definition. Let me tell you by definition. This effectively it disproportionately exposes marginalized communities to environmental hazards. This practice disproportionately, even when we do it to ourselves, it disproportionately exposes marginalized communities to environmental hazards. So, what we saw in this conversation was that local Democrats, Mr. Floyd, alleged manipulation of district lines to favor a specific candidate in North Carolina. And not just you, Mr. Floyd, because we saw other candidates step up and say, this happened. So, as they were stepping forward and saying this happened, um, there was these intra-party conflicts and questions about fairness. And the boards that we saw who were a part of this conversation were elected bodies, our state legislator who approves the district maps, and we continue to highlight that Cumberland County's delegation, by virtue of the fact that what we saw from the person who facilitates this conversation in North Carolina in the legislature said, I've talked to all the delegates, they're all on board. So Cumberland's county delegation was in favor of this. And we also saw that this eroded the trust again in the Democratic Party, in the democratic process, and it impacted representation because we had somebody specifically choose for the community who they wanted to
But Teach,
succeed them, and it worked.
but Teach, you had to look at terminology.
Yes,
It was done to make the district more compact.
is what they said.
That's what they said, to make the district more compact.
Is what
But
they
those persons
said.
who look at the map, who will look at the map,
See that's not the
they
case.
will see that's not the case, because when you look at the map in a circle, like, and then you look at the map itself and you see how the map shot a little dot down in between a district,
Yeah.
and the person said that it went beyond what I had requested. But our community, Teach, we are a community that, and we mentioned this several times on our flow, on our program. It's what Archie McMillan always said. Our community is a community of the sit in to fit in, because
Yeah.
the same occurred with Kurt LaVille as senator. The same occurred, with me as a member of the
Yeah,
House.
because once somebody makes up their mind and they understand, and this is why, listen, this is why watching this podcast is important, Mr. Floyd. You don't have to like us, but we are teaching you the game. We are teaching you how to follow the dots and connect them so that you can disrupt the patterns that are adversely affecting you, your neighbors, and your community at large. And if you like, again, I'm gonna say you don't have to like us, but we are giving you the plays.
Well, Tish, when you look at our community, and you heard it many times, I know you're unaffiliated. The road to the White House is through Cumberland County and the state of North Carolina. Uh,
Absolutely.
but that road does not give us a seat anywhere.
Well,
Any,
because we were even talking about the appointed positions, and even though that attorney and our mayor here in the city of Fayetteville have hosted several fundraisers for our now seated governor, there have been no positions named for any of the people in Cumberland County to step into in
but,
regards to position appointed positions at a
but
state level.
we're hoping that some of the definite cabinet level positions will get honorable consideration.
We shall see.
Now, remember now, honorable consideration
We shall see.
of the 13 appointees. Can you imagine all that Cumberland County do? All that are African American have not been appointed, but from the city of Fayetteville. Now we have had.
I've seen so many of our elected officials taking pictures with the people that run through here. I've seen them putting up posts and encouraging everybody to get up and go out and support these people. And there's no aside. Now I'll tell you what they get. They get the leverage of being able to pick up the phone and talk about the Dust Bowl and manipulate these types of things. But there's no, and I'll say this. I can't verify that that's happening. So I'm not saying that I know that that happened, but I can infer based upon what we talked about earlier that most certainly they should have some access, but they're not getting the appointments.
Well, Tish, if we haven't learned, in which we won't teach, but it's good to talk about it. The 2020 election,
Hmm.
where there was 3 females running for council or state position. Very, very, very limited funding was given to them. And then we come into 24 election, and our party from the council of state PAC did not give any money from the $44.6 million in that PAC. Did
Hmm.
not give any money to 3 Democrats. And one of those Democrats was from Cumberland County, and a faculty member, white, works at Fayetteville State University,
Hmm.
which I had experience with that person.
Are we talking about Rob Tabor's wife, Sarah Tabor, who ran for?
And I am surprised given how he helped Kimberly Hardy doing
And
her.
he's very active politically, very active.
And he haven't said anything about how the Council of State did not fund his wife. I mean,
Right.
that's
And I'm gonna
surprising.
tell y'all, if my husband ran for something, and I have been supporting all the players, and they turn around and we've been active in participating in their process, and they turn around and don't support my husband, I'm gonna say something. So I'm as surprised as you are.
Well, I mean, I was totally surprised, when no comment came. And then I sit down, Tisha, and I thought about it. I said, okay, Bobby Richardson was the person that they wanted. And I believe that Ron had some relationship in the now chairman of the state Democrat Party. And so that may have an adverse effect on the decision not to fund her.
Yeah.
But Chief, what we don't realize
Who is
is how
Bobby Richardson?
she was a former state Democrat.
Okay.
And she was a member of the North Carolina House prior to that.
Okay.
But it's just amazing how the former governor was in charge of this money, and the person was in charge of managing and handling the money did not give these persons, and especially the person that the governor appointed, any money. And so you begin to wonder, T. I mean, all those involved, how long can you mistreat people and expect for them to be followers and supporters? It's hard, Tish.
Mm-hmm.
It is hard. One of my policies, and I say this to you, and I told Garland Pierce, Representative Pierce, is that I don't pay people to discriminate against me.
And I'm
I'm,
not gonna pay you to mistreat me any
and I'm
kind
not
of way.
doing it.
Yeah,
I,
any kind of way. Now,
so
Mr. Port, go ahead.
Now, so how long can you ask the minority community to be supportive of you when I look at these things, how you primary for candidates, how you looked at Robert Morgan and then endorsed someone else, how you looked at Kurt LaVille, when all of these and three women ran in 2020. So how long do you think that you can continue to manipulate me and to be there for you and support you, for office?
Absolutely.
A
And
lot of healing has to be done.
but this is why it works. It works because people are not sharing the information that we're sharing. People are not taking our podcast and making sure that their friends are tuning in to hear how this really works. So when people stand up and sell you a narrative, it makes sense and you like them, and so you believe it and you follow it because you don't know how it works. And it's not that you don't know how it works because you're stupid. You're ignorant of the process because you're not involved in the process. If you don't sit in the rooms, you have no real idea about what happens in those spaces.
Well, Tish, it's a process of how manipulation take place.
Absolutely.
You know what is done is not right, but you just want to fit in, to sit in.
Mr. Floyd, I think a lot of people don't necessarily know it's not right because when you don't know how it works, you don't know what's right. You may know that you don't feel like you're getting the long end of the stick, but you don't you've most people in the Black community or in the community of people who look like you and I, most people that share our hue have been fed a narrative for decades that reinforces is nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. We trying, but there's nothing we can do.
But
And
Tish,
so when well, hold
you
on,
know,
let me finish this thought. So when we actually have somebody who's telling them, which is you and I, there is something they can do. They're choosing not to because they want to sit in to fit in.
well, that's the whole thing. Tish. You can't tell me that in order for me to get to Fort Liberty, I got to go south on Rayford Road.
You
Okay,
can't tell you that because you've driven it before and
you
because
know,
you're
I
familiar
mean,
with the
come
map.
on now,
Absolutely.
it's north. I mean, but they can convince some of us that you go south. So
Because
you go south.
this is what they tell us. We've never been allowed to go north. They've got barriers up that say we can't go north. You can't go north. You gotta go south, even though logically you can't go south to get there. But this emotional manipulation supersedes logical thinking. So here we are with the logics of it, Floyd, to tell people, y'all, this can change if the powers that be wanted it to.
But Teach, let me make this clear for those individuals who always want to scrutinize. Now, I'm on Murchison Road.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm on Murchison Road, and I can't go. Now I'm talking about I'm on Murchison Road,
you
and
can't go south.
I can't go south to get
You
there.
can't go south. Yeah.
You see, so I want to make that clear because some people might say, "Well,
You
I'm in
can't go
Louisville.
south. Yeah, yeah.
In
No,
Louisville. I
we're
can go
here.
south.
Yeah, we're here.
I'm here." But that's our, but that's our problem, Tish.
You just hit something. You just hit something, Floyd. It requires, and you look, you got to know where you are. You got to know where you are, and you got to know where you're trying to go.
Well, Tish, when you make up 21.9% of the state population, and the minority community carries the Democrat Party. If the Democrat Party does not have the African American community behind them and manipulating them, and I'm a Democrat, but I'm not completely, this was before your time, a member or have been a member of Dorothy Dix facility.
Yeah, you ain't
Okay.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not, I haven't been a member of that facility now. Or you see, but that's what they do, Tish. I mean, it's just a give a thing, and we just want to just. I'm just amazed, Tish. That I said to Commissioner Evans some time back. I sit in the back so I can watch the crowd up front.
Yeah. I think we also have to really encourage people to let go of the narrative of this painful narrative that we want to hold on to in now 2025 that really keeps us enslaved to ideologies of enslavement. And I think if we want to move forward, it's time for us and our leaders to recognize, first of all, that people that share our complexion are not a monolith. We don't all look alike. We don't all feel the same. We don't all share the same experiences. We're not all concerned about what you tell us we should be concerned about just because our skin is this complexion, which means that now you're going to have to really get to know this constituency at a granular level.
Well,
In order to really speak to what matters to us, which means you got to stop treating me like a black and you have to start treating me like Tisha.
what these, going into 25, 26, and something that is going to be on the ballot there as it relates to the election process.
Mhm.
Now,
And I'm talking to our black elected officials, by the way, Mr. Floyd, when I say that. I'm not talking to the people who don't share my complexion. I'm specifically speaking to the ones that look like me. Stop treating me like a black. Stop treating me like a girl. Treat me like an individual who has concerns of my own. Check in with me and stop making us all monolithic. Now, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to clarify that.
no, but that's what they think, Teach. When they see when they like one of my good friends there that lives that always supported me in many activities in our community out there. He is a Republican.
Yeah.
He is a Republican, but he support all Democrat causes
Hmm.
through his financial contribution, through purchasing tickets and everything, you know. So when you see him, many assume that he is a
He's a
Democrat,
Democrat.
but he is not.
Yeah.
He's an African American, live out in Gray Street,
Yeah.
you know. But they assume so when they see me, they can't deal with me because I don't have that unique mentality in saying yes, sir.
Hmm.
If you understand where that comes
I
from.
know exactly what you mean, Mr. Floyd. And before we run out of time, I do want us to talk about there's two more things that we have on our list, and I want us to hit them real quick. So one of them is that the shift in election oversight has transpired. We talked about this a little last year. There's been a recent legislative change in North Carolina that transfers election oversight from the governor to the state auditor. Now, this is important because the state auditor traditionally is responsible for financial audits and ensuring governmental accountability. The auditor will now oversee the appointment of the state board of election members. As an appointed body, the State Board of Elections is responsible for administering election laws, overseeing the conduct of elections, and ensuring their integrity. So, when we talk about the interplay between elected and appointed bodies, the General Assembly has redefined the responsibilities of the state auditor, an elected official, by assigning additional duties related to election oversight. The appointed State Board of Elections will continue to manage the election processes, just now under the oversight of the state auditor instead of the governor.
Well, Teach, let's just look at that very briefly.
Okay.
Once the it has been in past is that the controlling party makes the appointments to the board of election.
Right.
Normally, there's 5 members.
Controlling at the level of the governor's level, not in terms of the House and Senate, who's in charge.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. The governor will make that appointment of those 5 members.
Right.
Normally, the party that's in charge will make three, and then which will be the Democrat, and the Republican would have two.
Two.
Okay. There have been some changes when I was in the member of the General Assembly. Is that this is not a new issue? That they wanted to make it 8. That means that there will be two
Four
members
and
by
four.
the House, 2 members appointed by the Senate, 1 member appointed by the minority leader, and then 1 member appointed by the majority leader. There, that's both House and Senate.
Mhm.
So you would have had an 8 member board. Now, what happened now is that because the state did not help Holmes, which she lost by 2%,
And Holmes is a Democrat.
but a Democrat, she was ran for the auditor position. So if the state had helped her, then the Republican would have to find another place in order to put the board of election.
So the auditor who was elected is a Republican. It's
It's a
important for us to make
from
this
Fayetteville,
distinctions.
from Fayetteville,
Uh-huh.
from Fayetteville.
Yeah.
So if they had given her some of that council or state money, it may have been different.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you have to deal with the fact that would it be three Republicans or two Democrats, or would it be three Democrats and two Republicans? Now, and it also has an
And there's
adverse.
no requirement. There's nothing on the books that says that that's a requirement. So it could be 5 Democrats or 5 Republicans.
Well, they will be unique in their decision making.
I mean, it would be foolish to do that, but I'm just saying we need to make sure that people understand it's not a requirement to do it like that.
And now, quite natural that both of the matters has been appealed. The action that's taken by the last session of the General Assembly.
Who does the appeal go to, Mr. Floyd?
Well, Tisha goes to the appeal court, and I think it's 11-4.
Explain what you mean when you say it's 11-4. There are 15 members of the appellate court. 11 of them are
Republican.
4 of them are
Democrat.
The appellate court is appointed or elected, Mr. Floyd. It's an elected body, which means that the state of North Carolina elected 11 Republican appellate court members and elected 4 Democrat appellate court members. What does that say? I love this part. What does that say about the state of North Carolina? It says we vote Republican.
Well, and if it goes if it goes to the state Supreme Court,
what does that look like?
It's 7 members and 5 Republicans, 1 Democrat, and 1 race still in limbo.
So either way it goes, it will be 5-2 if a Democrat wins, or 6-1 if they lose. So again, that says about the state of North Carolina. And the reason I say I love this part is because we think locally. When we think about elections, we think about Cumberland County. Yes, Cumberland County is very blue. Most urban areas, most concentrated areas are very blue. But North Carolina, the entire state, leans red.
Well, we have about, I'm going to say between 23 to 25 of the 100 counties that may be blue.
So I'm not laughing. I am laughing. I was about to say I'm not laughing, but I'm laughing at the fact that there's this ideology that the narrative, and we talk about this all the time, and I'm not going to get stuck here because we got one more thing to talk about. But we talk about all the time the message of the Democrat Party. I'm laughing at the fact that Democrats to date still have not updated their messaging to reflect the true nature of the constituency in the state that they serve. So, and probably the nation, because it's been a problem nationwide. So, Mr. Floyd, you got any?
2025, I don't see it changing.
You don't see it changing, Mr. Floyd?
No.
Okay, well, the last thing that we had on our docket to talk about today, or on our agenda to speak about, is this Rex healthcare vaccine mandate. And I think this one's very interesting because often we don't automatically correlate vaccine mandates in the workplace with the political process. So let's unpack this a little bit. What we saw is that Rex Healthcare, part of the UNC Health system, faces a lawsuit which is filed by the U.S. EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, for alleged religious discrimination against an employee who was terminated over a denied COVID-19 vaccine exemption. And the issue here is balancing workplace vaccine mandates with accommodations for religious beliefs. And the reason this is an issue is because Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits workplace discrimination, providing the legal foundation for the EEOC's actions. Now, the problem is that some states pass laws mandating vaccines or outlining the framework for exemptions, influencing local employer policies. Well, Mr. Floyd, here's the issue that we got to start wrapping our mind around. If elected bodies are going to go against policy, that creates an issue, especially if you have somebody who is willing to sue the elected body based upon the policy.
Well, Tish, in this instance, the young lady had articulated her religious belief
Yes,
and granted an exemption. And she worked from home. And she was saying that the vaccine itself was against her religious belief.
correct.
Now, when you look at the vaccine itself, a reasonable minded person would be that those persons who are in contact, with the general public at the workplace,
Hmm.
her work was at home. And so when EEOC looks at it, they say reasonable accommodation. Now, remind you now, it did not require her to have a glass office at the site,
Right.
which
And a reasonable accommodation would have been to test, to wear masks, to wash hands regularly. Like all of these things would have been reasonable accommodations. And that would have been if she remained in the workplace. But the fact that she was work from home should make this a slam dunk. The only issue that I see, Mr. Floyd, that we all need to pay attention to, and when I say this, I don't just mean Christians, I mean Christians, Hindus, Muslims, anybody who has a religious affiliation. We need to pay attention to the implications that this has to Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, which protects against religious discrimination. Because if this lawsuit does not move forward successfully for Heather Goller, who is the plaintiff in this case, we need to understand that that erodes the protections for anybody in the workplace under your religious freedoms.
but I believe, Chief, that as the case go forward, that attorney is going to hammer in on reasonable accommodation to prevail in this lawsuit.
And should. Listen, you hear me? And should.
Yeah.
And they should. Mr. Floyd, I'm gonna tell you, when I read that article, that when you sent it over, I was like, this is foolish. But this is where we are in the state of politics. So as we go into 2025 and as we bust the doors wide open, we say to you all, the political system as it stands, and maybe Mr. Floyd, you might disagree. If you disagree, you correct me. But as it stands is extremely foolish.
Well,
Extremely.
I will say, Chief, that is unique.
I'm
And
gonna
put
say foolish.
I'm gonna put saying that you need to stop being manipulated and
Stop being
question,
manipulated.
yeah, and question those elected officials that come to you with trying to sell you a frozen watermelon in the summer.
Come on now, Mr. Floyd. Period. Period. And at this point, if you are not willing to take what we are giving you and execute it actionably, and actionably means stay involved in the conversations, think proactively and think strategically, because when something is taking place in your face, it has implications about stuff that's coming down the line or things that are going to be happening behind your back. And it will be something that will be used to indebt you and enslave you to your government if you're not cautious. So pay attention, make wise decisions, and remain involved. And if you have a hard time understanding, ask the people who are serving in the capacity of trying to make sure you get this information. Call Floyd, send him an email, send him a message online. Do the same with me, or reach out to your elected body and then share their reaction or response with us, and we'll help you break that down. We're not trying to manipulate you, are we, Floyd?
No, I'm not trying to manipulate. I'm just trying to get you to better understand how stop to being manipulated. And in 2025, there's going to be election of the city council. And I wish, Chief, as we close, that the city council will move their election from an off-season election to an election to match with the presidential election, instead of a odd year into an even year.
Let's make it our business to talk more about why that won't happen as we move forward this year. Also, Floyd, I want you to leave the people with a nugget today. What nugget do you have for our people besides just that? That's a good nugget, but what else you want to tell them before we go?
Please, I beg you, as we go into 25, please, please, please avoid being manipulated.
That's good. And I'm gonna tell y'all this. I'm always honest with you. You will never have to question who I like and who I don't like. But I will never allow who I like and who I don't like to affect what I think is right and what I think is wrong. Because there are some things that people that I don't like do very well, and I applaud them for that. And so you never have to worry about what I give you on this podcast, me trying to manipulate you into feeling how I feel about somebody. I want you to feel how you feel, and I want you to do what you do. And if you rock with them and you support what they're doing, I applaud you for that. Because at the end of the day, every tub has to stand on its own bottom. As we move into this year, Mr. Floyd, I just want to tell everybody like, share, subscribe, and follow. Remember, we don't have to do new year, new you. Because like you said, Floyd, you are who you are, and who you were in 24 is going to affect who you are in 25. So get your character solid. Know who you serve. I always tell you that. And enjoy this year as best you can. The highs, the lows, the in-betweens. Enjoy this year. Floyd, you want to say bye? And then I'll hit this.
Grace.
I'm pressing the button. It's not doing anything. Come on. Excellent show, Floyd.
Okay.
Excellent show. Have a wonderful day, sir.
You too.